Hello everyone and welcome to Fabulous Friday Hymns. While we're sheltered in place for the immediate future, every Friday I will be sharing with you one hymn. This week's choice is If You But Trust in God to Guide You, and that is hymn number 410 in the Black Hymnal, the New Century Hymnal, aka the Black Hymnal. The words to the hymn are in the comments below, and the reason I chose this hymn is it's based off of the scripture reading from Paul's letter to the Romans, which is this week's appointed epistle reading. It's from the 8th chapter, verses 6 through 11. The Apostle Paul wrote, "To set the mind on the flesh is death, but to set the mind on the Spirit is life and peace. For this reason, the mind that is set on the flesh is hostile to God. It does not submit to God's law. Indeed, it cannot. And those who are in the flesh cannot please God. But you are not in the flesh. You are in the Spirit, since the Spirit of God dwells in you. Anyone who does not have the Spirit of Christ does not belong to him. But if Christ is in you, though the body is dead because of sin, the Spirit is life because of righteousness. If the Spirit of him who raised Jesus from the dead dwells in you, he who raised Christ from the dead will give life to your mortal bodies also, through his Spirit that dwells in you." Some history on this hymn. It was written in 1641 by a German author and poet named Georg Neumark. Here was the motivation for him to write the hymn. In 1641, he graduated from German Gymnasium, which is similar to putting middle school and high school education together in one in the United States. And he had decided to go on and study law. However, during a journey he was making with his friends through Germany in the fall of 1641, he was the victim of a robbery. And he was left only with the clothes on his back, money that had been sewn into his clothes, and a small prayer book. Obviously, he had to then delay his entrance into university and find work so he could pay for his education. It took him over 2 months, but eventually he found work in the northern German city of Kiel, which is just north of Germany's northern border with Denmark. In Kiel, he found a local pastor who connected him with a local judge who was looking for a tutor for his children. Eventually, Neumark took this position and tutored the children for almost 2 years to save enough money to go to university. Toward the end of his life in 1681, Neumark wrote of this experience, and he wrote, "This good fortune, which came so suddenly and as if fallen from heaven, gladdened my heart so that on that very day I composed to the honor of my beloved Lord the here and there well-known hymn, Wer nur den lieben Gott lasst walten, and had certain cause enough to thank the divine compassion for such unexpected grace shown to me." This hymn became rather well known in German hymnals throughout the 18th and 19th century. The original version had 7 verses, and its English version was translated by Catherine Winkworth, who was a British woman who lived in the late 19th century. She took an interest in German hymnody and translated this hymn in English. Her everyday work, she was a big proponent of women's education. You could say she was a very early feminist of her day. And she translated all 7 verses of this hymn. Most hymnals today only have 3 or 4 of those verses for congregations to sing, but the original version has 7 verses. And Catherine Winkworth was also the foremost individual of translating German hymns into English. She translated hundreds of those, but most notably, she translated "Comfort, comfort ye my people," "Jesus priceless treasure," "Now thank we all our God," and "Praise to the Lord the Almighty." Here is If You But Trust in God to Guide You. Hope that brings some happiness to your weekend. See you all next Friday for another Friday Fabulous Hymn.